The vocational education system places graduates into the workforce daily, yet federal oversight stalls on a slow analog delay. Accreditors like NACAC use a legacy framework, relying on self-reported documentation submitted in 6-year cycles, leaving massive informational voids. This delay creates a severe human cost. In Knoxville, regulators repeatedly flagged a Paul Mitchell school's financial instability, yet it maintained accreditation for 13 years before revocation, all while holding a 3% graduation rate. A periodic review model incentivizes selective disclosure. Institutions facing financial or academic distress can obscure their internal failures during the long gaps between official evaluations. During those unmonitored gaps, the U.S. Department of Education continues to funnel billions in Title IV federal financial aid directly into these failing programs. Legacy accreditation functions as a lagging indicator. A system that only looks backward once every 6 years structurally fails to protect both vulnerable students and taxpayer dollars in the present. To counter these institutional failures, the federal government relies on the gainful employment rules as its primary accountability tool. At the center of this regulation is the debt-to-earnings test. The formula divides a graduate's annual federal loan debt by their annual earnings as reported to the IRS. Applying this formula to beauty schools reveals a category error. Cosmetology programs produce tipped professionals and independent contractors. Relying exclusively on IRS data erases their true income. Tips and cash transactions fall out of the equation entirely. Consequently, the federal measuring stick threatens schools with closure, even when their graduates are successfully earning, simply because the data cannot see that success. To survive this environment, vocational institutions must architect an entirely new system that proves their actual economic output. Successful institutions like Louisville Beauty Academy utilize a strict, pay-as-you-go, debt-free model as their first layer of defense. This model is mathematically invincible against federal gainful employment rules. A student who graduates with 0 federal loan debt creates a numerator of 0, causing the federal metric to drop away. Removing the debt is only half the solution. The New American Business Association proposes moving vocational schools out of the traditional higher education regulatory bucket entirely. This framework routes student funding through Department of Labor WIOA training vouchers, aligning federal support with rapid workforce entry rather than long-term Title IV debt. The model then connects graduates to Small Business Administration microloans and mentorship, treating them as emerging entrepreneurs rather than simple employees. This strategy reclassifies beauty schools as micro-entrepreneurship incubators. Escaping the regulatory trap requires institutions to abandon the Title IV debt silo and embrace a workforce-first business creation model. Changing the funding model requires institutions to prove their outcomes daily. This necessity is met by the AI Workforce Observatory. This technological stack replaces paper-based accreditation through 5 distinct layers, starting with real-time data ingestion. Instead of manual audits, the system continuously ingests live enrollment, student feedback, and state licensing records directly from the source. Layer 2 applies predictive analytics and machine learning to monitor this data stream for any deviations from regulatory standards. This allows school leadership to receive automatic alerts regarding declining pass rates or cohort dropouts, enabling intervention months before a crisis occurs. Layer 3 utilizes AI to auto-assemble compliance evidence, mapping daily data directly to regulatory standards, removing the burden of manual preparation. Layer 4 uses natural language querying, allowing regulators to ask for performance metrics by cohort and receive instant answers. Layer 5 pushes this verified data to a public-facing transparency dashboard, making debt, completion, and job placement visible to the entire market. This architecture transforms compliance into a continuous, predictive asset. This matrix details the evolution from the legacy NACAS framework to the AI-driven model. The primary shift moves review frequency from a 6-year cycle to continuous assessment. The failure response time shrinks from years of institutional decline down to mere days. Automated evidence compilation removes the high financial and operational cost of maintaining large compliance teams and hosting periodic paper site visits. The data sources also shift from internal, self-reported findings to fully public dashboards integrated with IRS and census benchmarks. This dense, verifiable evidentiary standard renders periodic paper reviews obsolete through its sheer depth of data. Adopting this technology requires navigating a fractured federal policy landscape. This analysis identifies three competing factions, mapping the core positions of this strict accountability camp against those of the industry flexibility camp. Accountability advocates seek to shut down debt trap schools, while industry advocates argue that current metrics unfairly target trade schools. A third path, the transparency first camp, focuses on real-time data and improvement incentives rather than blunt periodic sanctions. Tran University positions itself at the exact intersection of these demands, utilizing the rigorous data architecture of the transparency first movement to secure the operational agility needed by the industry. Proving outcomes publicly neutralizes regulatory threats, while championing the flexibility desired by the trade sector. The final strategic hurdle is institutional apprehension, the fear of acting outside existing accreditation frameworks. Data creates its own institutional gravity. A school that publishes an undeniable, continuous record of graduate success stops needing external validation to prove its worth. Operating debt-free provides the freedom to innovate without the constant threat of Title IV sanctions. Institutions shouldn't wait for federal permission. Build the architecture, demonstrate the success, and force the regulatory environment to adapt. The future of workforce education belongs to those who replace the illusion of compliance with the continuous proof of excellence.